All right. Okay. We're live. The date, October 16th, 1926. The time, it wasn't Monday Night Football. It was an afternoon game in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. The teams, the New York Giants at the Frankford Yellow Jackets, and the place would be the lovely Frankford Stadium. Now, the Giants, this part of the season for the Giants anyway, it would be pretty much kind of would take them out of contention for any type of title hopes or anything like that. They came in, they started off 2-0, and then they played pretty much the toughest teams of their schedule, right? They started off with they beat the Hartford Blues, and then they beat the Providence Steamroller. Then they played the next three games they lost. So they started off 2-0. Things were looking pretty good, right? Their first season they finished 8-4. You know, they're very, very good, especially expansion team, I guess. They did very well. So they came into this season with some high hopes. They started off 1925 0-3. So things weren't looking too good. However, they rattled off 8 out of the final 9 games. And so they finished 8-4. They finished really, really strong. So they had high hopes for this season. And I said, they started off okay. But they started off 2-0. But something funny happened along the way. The next 3 games were actually against the best 2 teams in the NFL that season. They lost. They're all tough games. They lost to the Chicago Bears. Then they played the Frankford Yellow Jackets, back to back. Meaning, and you think the guys nowadays that they all get up in arms. We're gonna play a Sunday game and a Thursday game. They did. Well, back then they played Saturday and Sunday, and the guys who were on the field played 60 minutes. Not I played 2 plays. Let me get a breather. No. See, back then they played. There was some substitutions, wasn't many. I mean, you might go a game. I'll read some of the substitutions at the end. At the end here. But I mean, there might have been 3, 4, 5 substitutions. Guy might have came out for a quarter or something like that, whatever. But for the most part, a lot of the guys played 60 minutes. You came off the field, you were dead, right? But here, with the problem playing Frankfurt Jackets is that, they didn't play. They had like blue laws in Philadelphia, meaning where, they weren't allowed to play in Philadelphia on Sundays, right? So they had to play all their home games on Saturday. But what did that mean? That means it was in their mind, hey, we play Saturday, we can also play Sunday. There's no, free agency. There's none of these contracts. I'm sitting out. I want this. I mean, some guy. I read some articles and stuff like that. Some guys, did sit out or whatever. But for the most part, you want money, you play. Okay, you come and you play. But I mean, a lot of times with the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, they would play Saturday, Sunday, and there's the same thing that happened the year before, 1925. The Giants played back-to-back games with the second and the third game of the season for the Giants were against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. The first game in they lost the first game of the season. The Giants did in 1925 to the Providence Steamroller, 14-0. The second and third game of the 1925 season, they played back-to-back against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. They played on a Saturday. They lost in a barn burner, 5-3. Then the third game of the season, they played Saturday in Frankfurt. Then they played Sunday in New York, and they lost the second game or the third game of the season. The Giants did 14-0 once again to the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. That would be Jim Thorpe's last game ever playing for the Giants because he got injured in that game and he wasn't able to come back, and so the Giants let him go. But once again, here we are in 1926. The Giants are playing back-to-back games against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, and once again, they would lose both games by the same score. All right, but Chicago and Frankford, they were the cream of the crop, and Frankford in 1926 won the whole thing. Right, they were very, very good. They set the NFL record. They won 14 games in 1926. It wouldn't be broken until, what was it, 1984? I think it was. The San Francisco 49ers, 84, 49ers were 15-1. So, during the regular season. But the Frankford Yellow Jackets also played, multiple back-to-back games. Let me just give you a little indication here of what Frankford, the Yellow Jackets, did during the 1926 season. Okay, they played back-to-back games against the Hartford Blues, right, in Connecticut. They played October 2nd and October 3rd. They played back-to-back games against the New York Giants, October 16th. And my next game, which I'm going to do a video on, would be October 17th. So they played back-to-back games against the Giants. They played back-to-back games against the Providence Steamroller, Providence, Rhode Island, October 30th, and Halloween, October 31st. So meaning there would be a Saturday and a Sunday. They played back-to-back. Oh, no, my bad. But they played back-to-back games, not against the same team. But they played November 20th against the Dayton Triangles at home. And then they played at Clifton Heights, Orange and Black, a non-league game, but that was the 21st. And it looks like that was pretty much about it. They also played. They played November 25th. They played November 27th. So within a period from the November, the Frankford Yellow Jackets from November 20th to November 27th. So a span of 8 days, they played 4 games. In 8 days, right? So they played a lot of games. Actually, the games, the games in the NFL and the league games, the games that did not count, they played a grand total of 19 games. They were 16-1-2, so they played 19 games. But as I said, they played a lot of games that were back to back because they could not play. We're not allowed to play on Sunday in Philadelphia. So, that's just the way it was. There's no ESPN, there's no cable, there's no television revenue or nothing like that. If you want to play, if you want to make some money, you got to play. And you got to play, and you got to hope that you get paying customers in there as well. And that was one of the things that a lot of teams, hurt a lot of teams. They just couldn't draw people. Even Tim Mara, the owner of the Giants, he would give away sometimes thousands and thousands of tickets to a game just to get people to show up. Maybe it would draw some interest, and maybe they'd get in for free the first time, but then maybe it would draw some interest, and maybe they would come back and become a paying customer the next time. But it was very, very difficult. I said, so that's why a lot of these teams were not able to survive because they just couldn't, it's not like, nowadays, you get – most games are sold out. Even if they're not sold out, even if say the stadium's 3/4 full. Well, with the TV revenue, money coming in and all and everything, all these teams, they all make money. Not the way it was back then. Not the way it was. So, but 1926 was be a very, very good season for the Frankford Yellow Jackets. They said they played in Frankfurt Stadium until 1931, and obviously, then it got damaged. It's nothing. It's nothing. If you ever look at Frankfurt Stadium, it's nothing, nothing super spectacular at all. Let me tell you what. But it got damaged by fire, and so Frankfurt Stadium, also known as this is straight out of Wikipedia. Okay, also this is where this game was played at Frankfurt Stadium, right, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was on the corner of Frankfurt Avenue and Devereux Avenue in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Frankfurt Stadium, also known as Yellow Jacket Stadium, was a football field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania that was the home of the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, football team of the National Football League, which predated the Eagles. They predated them. They have no. There's no Pottsville Maroons, the Frankford Yellow Jackets. None of those teams. They have no ties at all to the Eagles. Are the Eagles? There's no ties whatsoever to the Philadelphia Eagles here whatsoever. The stadium was located at Frankford Avenue and Devereaux Avenue. It was the Yellow Jackets' home from 1923 through 1930. However, on July 27, 1931, a fire caused major damage to the structure, forcing the Yellow Jackets to play their remaining home games at the Baker Bowl and at Municipal Stadium before disbanding during the 1931 season. 1931 would be the Yellow Jackets' final season. The site was purchased in 1933 by the Franklin Legion Athletic Association, who demolished the structure to build the Franklin Legion Athletic Field. When the Frankford Legion AA reorganized in Northeast Philadelphia later that year, the stadium's name was changed to Yellow Trojan Field. I said, but it's nothing super spectacular, but as of the modern day, this is quite classic. As of 2017, okay, what stands on this site right now, a Dollar Tree and row houses occupy the site. So good old Dollar Tree. So where this famous stadium was one time housed the 1926 NFL champions, who were 14-1-2, right, is a Dollar Tree there. I don't know if there's a sign or plaque at all or anything like that to, talk about the year that they had, but row homes and row houses and a Dollar Tree is there. But I said the Frankford Yellow Jackets, 1926. Let's see here. It was their third season in the National Football League. The team improved on the previous output of 10-4, winning 14 games in 1926 by virtue of their league best record, 14-1-2. Because remember, back then, the championship games didn't start till 1933. So it was the team, not so much the team that had the most wins. It was the team who had the best, obviously, winning percentage. The team with the best winning percentage was declared the winners. By virtue of their league best record, 14-1-2. And remember, and ties didn't count. So basically, they were 14-1. Okay. They were crowned the 1926 NFL champions. The 1926 Yellow Jackets are the last NFL franchise to win a championship and later go defunct. Let's see. Incidentally, the champions of the rival American Football League. This is interesting too. American Football League, the Philadelphia Quakers, they were also champions too. They had been there had been some brief discussion of fulfilling the crosstown rivalry by staging an interleague championship between the Quakers and the Yellow Jackets, but the Yellow Jackets declined. The Quakers instead played the seventh play. Yeah. After the season was over, there was an American Football League for one season and it disbanded after the 1926 season. The Philadelphia Quakers wound up winning that. Interestingly enough, the Philadelphia Quakers of 1926 had the coach of the 1925 Giants. So Bob Folwell coached the Philadelphia Quakers in 1926 of the American Football League. They were the champions. They were crowned champions. After the season was over with, the Quakers and the Giants played each other, right? They went head to head. The Giants kicked their butts 31-0, right? So that just goes to show you the power of the NFL. So the 1926 season for the Yellow Jackets was a thing of beauty. Now I'm gonna go over and read a little something. I'm gonna go over. Okay, I got articles I'm gonna read. Kind of going over the Yellow Jackets and the Bears faced each other for one game, and it came down to like the final seconds of the game, and it was basically what it was. It was toward the end of the season, and basically it's the one that crowned the champion of the NFL. It was a snoozer up until the final quarter. So I'll go over that in just a couple minutes here. But it wound up being a heck of a football game. But the Frankford Yellow Jackets, 1926 championship season. The Yellow Jackets began the 26th season with an exhibition game against the Atlantic City Roses. Okay. Which Frankford won only 45-0. The NFL campaign started just 6 days later. in a disappointing 6-6 tie at home against the Akron Pros. The Akron team, incidentally, they were the first champions, 1920, the Akron team, the first champions ever, 1920, the Akron team. The first week in October saw the club post 2 solid victories over the Hartford Blues. Then they played a 2-game series against the Buffalo Rangers. During the Saturday game, the Yellow Jackets defeated the Rangers 30-0 in Frankfurt. The Jackets then headed to Buffalo for the Sunday game. However, the Rangers canceled due to wet grounds. As you got to remember, back then, if the field is, there's no drainage back then. It's not the way it is now, like the way that some of these stadiums have it, where a tsunami, a 3,000-foot wall of water can come washing over the stadium, over the grounds, and within like half an hour, it's totally dry. It wasn't like that back then. If it got wet, it was wet, and it stayed wet for a long time. So, let's see here. The Yellow Jackets prepared for another 2-game set, this time against the New York Giants, resulting in a pair of 6-0 Frankfurt victories. The Canton Bulldogs were next on the schedule. Frankfurt won the first game 10-0, while the second game was canceled due to rain. Yeah. During the final week in October, the Yellow Jackets had a league-leading 6-0-1 record. However, they had an upcoming 2-game set with their toughest opponent yet, the Providence Steamroller. The Yellow Jackets managed to split the series. The team's November schedule included only single-game weekends and a Thanksgiving Day game. This played to the Yellow Jackets' advantage. The team posted victories over the Chicago Cardinals, the Duluth Eskimos, and the Dayton Triangles. This string of victories left Frankfurt in great shape in the standings as the team headed into its Thanksgiving Day game against the Green Bay Packers. For the next 5 seasons, the Frankfurt Green Bay Thanksgiving Day game would become an annual tradition. Frankfurt went on to win the game 20-14, due mainly to a touchdown pass from Husk Stockton to 2-Bits Holman. Oh yeah, 2-Bits. The Yellow Jackets then posted a 7-6 victory over the Detroit Panthers 2 days later. After a win over the Chicago Bears, the Yellow Jackets played a second 2-game series against the Providence Steamroller. Frankfurt won the first one 24-0, but the second game was canceled because of heavy snow. Frankfurt then had to play their final game of the season against the Pottsville Maroons, and Pottsville was the third-place team. They only had 2 losses. So basically, if the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets played the Pottsville Maroons, if Pottsville would have won that game, the Bears would have won the championship. But see, the Pottsville Maroons, who were still upset after the 1926 title had been stripped from them, that's another story for another day. The 1925 championship debacle. That's another. The Pottsville Maroons seem like they kind of got screwed. But the game between the Yellow Jackets and the Pottsville Maroons, the game resulted in a scoreless tie. However, at 14-1-2, the final record left the Yellow Jackets alone atop the NFL standings. Since a championship game would not exist in the NFL until 1933, the team with the best regular season winning percentage was named the NFL champion. This gave the Yellow Jackets undisputed claim to the league crown. The Jackets' 14 wins during the 1926 season set an NFL record for regular season victories that stood until 1984, when it was broken by the 15-1 San Francisco 49ers. One day after capturing the title, however, their owner, Theodore Holden and Guy Chamberlain, stepped down as president and coach of the Frankfurt Athletic Association. So 1926 was a very good season for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. I said they finished 14-2. Now, just to give you a little bit of a background here, right? Going into this game with Chicago, okay? To Chicago, it was played on December 4th, okay? Frankfurt Yellow Jackets coming into this game were 12-1-1. They had 1 loss. Coming into this game, the Chicago Bears were undefeated. Chicago came into this game 11-0-2. So 12-1-1 versus 11-0-2. Okay, so whoever wound up winning this game wound up being champion, and it wound up coming down to a missed extra point. The Bears missed an extra point, and it cost them the title. A missed extra point. And it was, it wasn't like, there's 4 extra points they have nowadays. So extra points were crucial back then, and they missed an extra point and it wound up costing them. So let me go over here. Let me read this here. It's a few paragraphs here. Okay, but it brings you, this is the game that got played on, as I said, it was December 4th, right? Right, December 4th. The Frankford Yellow Jackets played the Chicago Bears. It was played in Frankford, right? So it was Philadelphia. They were home. Okay, it was the only time that they played the Chicago Bears all season long. It was the best 2 teams went head to head. The undefeated Chicago Bears played the 1-loss Frankford Yellow Jackets. I said, whoever wound up winning pretty much would be declared the champion of the NFL. There was still a couple games to go, but all right. Let's see here. So it was 0-0 going into the final period. Anybody's game, right? I mean, that's sometimes, and a lot of times there was 0-0 tie, so it didn't mean that somebody was going to score. But they went 3 quarters, there was no score. So it was 0-0 going into the final quarter. It said here, then came the final period. Patty Driscoll of the Bears still remained in command of the Bears. Now, I got quite a few paragraphs here, so you guys bear with me here. But Romney was still in the backfield, but Sen of Knox College had replaced Walquist of Illinois, and Knopp had ousted Dutch Sterneman. Then the Bears started their sweep. Sen fast as greased lightning afoot. That is the way they describe these plays is just simply phenomenal. It's the way they describe it, it's almost like a movie. You know what I mean? Sen, fast as greased lightning afoot, was ruining the defense of the Jackets. He was rounding Crowther's end in a manner such as no other foe has done this season. But finally, Frankford was able to get the ball. Hammer turned loose a brilliant punt that traveled 50 yards or better, and it was grounded on the Bears' 39-yard line. The Bears had used a splendid formation which swung 7 men on one side of the line with a back directly behind the center and the running back 5 yards behind the wing back. The ball was passed to Sen on this formation, and away he started like a hound freed from the leash. The interference that sprang into action from him was wondrous. I mean, this is what it says here. It's unbelievable. A wall of humanity strode in front of this speedster. Now the Bears have the ball here, right? With the oval, not the football, with the oval under his arm. And the first man knocked out was Crowther's, the end. Another interferer picked off Tech's hammer. A third put 2 bits out of play. And then Sen straight-armed another. By this time, the whippet from Illinois was free, and he was going like a limited. The left side of the Frankford line by this time had swung into pursuit, and Chamberlain was pulling down the terrain between himself and Sen, but this time was too short and the distance too great for the Jacket manager to turn the trick. Sen went over the line, just 2 yards ahead of his pursuer. This is what cost. Patty Driscoll then failed the goal, meaning he missed the extra point. Failed the goal. Okay. So he missed the extra point. So after this touchdown, the Bears led 6-0. And then a vast stillness fell upon the cohorts of the Jackets. But this Powell lifted immediately. Frankfurt realized that but 2 minutes were left. So all of this stuff happened in the final 2 minutes. This is stuff that's crazy here. Realized that there were just 2 minutes were left, and discretion must be tossed to the winds and the pigskin to the backs, because they realized if they lose this, their season's over with. The Bears won the championship, right? Stockton, easily the best forward passer in football this season, was assigned that task. So now the Yellow Jackets have the ball. He wafted one of those flat baseball passes to Bruder, and 5 yards were gained. So there was apparently 2 minutes left to go in the game, and then he throws a pass, and they picked up 5 yards. They need a touchdown. They're passing. Yeah, Stabbing the line once yielded. Hold on, I got to go to the next one here. Stabbing the line. So I guess they mean they ran the ball. Okay, here we go. Stabbing the line gained 3 more, and the ball was now worked well within the Bruins territory or the Bears territory. So they completed a 5-yard pass and a 3-yard run, and the ball was now well within the Bears territory. Time was ebbing away fast, and it was up to Stockton to make the dramatic play of the game. Never was such a roll in better hands. It's unbelievable. Barking the signal for a pass, he took the ball on direct shot from center as the linesman of the Bears came thundering through. It seemed as if Stockton must be borne to the grass by the avalanche, but he kept retreating until he was at least 15 yards from the scrimmage line. As these burleys kept pressing closer, groan welled up from all Frankford. Then, as one man made a dive for him, Stockton raised his arm and nonchalantly, as if lighting a cigarette, he pegged the ball. Pegged is the word. It was a throw that would have delighted Jimmy Dykes, who maintains his vigil about where Stockton was standing. The ball arched through the air, and it looked like a punt. It had been thrown so high. It was the perfect long pass, too high for the Bears to reach and bat down, fast enough to come hurling through the ozone to the midget Holman. Then 2 bits became the $1 million. Holman, 2 bits Holman. Holman had gone almost to the end zone and at least not more than 2 yards this side of the final chalk mark. So I guess he was just inbounds, I guess. It says Holman turns the trick. He kept his arms ready and his eyes skinned, and gracefully the ball descended into the grasp of the Lebanon Valley player. 2 defensive backs of the Bears had careened down behind the goal line after they had espied the bold 2-bit stationed there as if he were a cop on a fixed post. But ere they could knock down the ball or smear Holman's after grabbing the oval, not the football, the oval. 2 bits had engulfed the pigskin, slid a step or 2 to his left, and put the ball down on the grass and the stands into delirium. The place went freaking bananas. Hammer then accomplished his end of the bargains by booting the points, and now the Yellow Jackets are up 7-6. The game's not over. But while Frankfurt kept hoping that the game would end, so all this happens in the final 2 minutes. I mean, remember, there's no 2-minute, drive. There's no, grounding the ball, timeout, run out of bed. There's none of that stuff. I mean, this is just crazy. But while Frankfurt kept hoping that the game would end, those travelers from the Bowl, Mish, were far from through. Whatever that means. Done was no word found in the bright lexicon of their youth and professional struggles. They went right into the air, too, and it began to look dubious. The first pass, a short one from Patty Driscoll to Sen, only gained 4 yards. But the next one almost brought Frankfurt to the verge of apoplexy. Apoplexy? It was Driscoll's purpose to pass to Sen, hoping that the boy could shake himself loose and gallop for a winning touchdown. And Driscoll almost did that very little thing. All this is going on in the last 2 minutes. He looped a beautiful pass that Sen grabbed out of the air, straight-armed the man who covered him, and then was free. Like hoof beats on 100 horses came the cleated thumps of the pursuers on that chilled soil, but it looked like a stern chase and hopeless one for the Frankfurt. But the treacherous footing came to the rescue of the Quaker warriors. For as an end almost reached Sen, the Knox College boy tried to evade him and slipped. He fell, and this time 3 of our frantic Yellow Jackets pinned him right on the ground. Then the tempestuous defense of the Hornets held Driscoll and his allies at bay. Here we go. 3 tries at the line had thrown back the Bruins to the 40-yard line, and desperate measures were necessary, and right away. The Bears huddled so long that this was their stupidity here. This might have here cost them the game and the championship. So the Bears tried to run the ball. Time was running out. The Bears went into a huddle, and they were in it so long, the referee penalized them 5 yards for delayed game. So they moved them back 5 yards, right? And cautioned them to hustle. So Driscoll went back 5 more yards and tried a field goal from midfield. If he kicks the field goal, it goes through. They win 9-7. They win the championship. But a stout wind blowing across the field. Driscoll's boot only carried to the 5-yard line, right? Remember, they got moved back 5 yards. Maybe if they didn't get a penalty, maybe his kick maybe makes it, maybe. So Driscoll's boot only carried to the 5-yard line, however, and before the teams could line up for another play, the whistle blew and the game was over. The Bears thus suffered their first defeat of the season, and the Hornets had stung to death the jinx that always pursued them when encountering the Chicagoans. So that was just a it was just a crazy kind of finish to the game. And I said that one actually wound up being pretty much the championship game, because the Yellow Jackets they didn't lose anymore. And at the end of the season, they were crowned the champions because they were 14-1. The Bears were 12-1. Now, what really paid dividends to the Frankford Yellow Jackets was all those back-to-back games that they had, right? I mean, what do they have here? The Frankford Yellow Jackets had against the Hartford Blues, against the New York Giants, the Providence Steamroller, and then they had another. Then they had another game they played on another Saturday. So I mean, they had like 3. So they had like at least 3 back-to-backs, and they had another one or so that got canceled. So they had a bunch of back-to-back games, but there was three that did get played against the Hartford Blues, the Providence Steamroller, and the New York Giants, where they played Saturday and Sunday. So they got 3 extra games in there, and all those 3 games, all those games that they want to play actually helped them win, because they finished the 1926 season. The Frankford Yellow Jackets were 14-1-2 with a winning percentage of .933. The Chicago Bears were 12-1-3 with a winning percentage of .923. So by virtue of .933 to .923, the Frankford Yellow Jackets won the 1926 league title. I mean, they had a great defense. I mean, they played 17 games. They gave up 49 points. I mean, not even 3 points a game they gave up. So the Bears were pretty good. The defense was pretty good too. Actually, the Pottsville Maroons were really good too. The Pottsville Maroons gave up 2 points a game. They played 14 games. They were 10-2-2. They gave up 29 points. 14 games, they gave 29 points. That's pretty good. But it's not as good as the 1927 New York Giants. The 1927 New York Giants played 13 games, gave up 20 points. 1.5 points per game. Not even Lawrence Taylor can accomplish that. So that leads us up to our football game here, right? So I said the Giants, let me get them up here if I can find them here. There we are. So I said the Giants started off the season. They beat the Hartford Blues 21-0. Then they beat the Providence Steamroller 7-6. So they started off 2-0. Okay. Then they played the Chicago Bears, and they wound up losing 7-0. So then they were 2-1. But I said the Bears were the second best team. Then the Giants played back-to-back games here against the Frankford Yellow Jackets, and they would lose both of them 6-0. So this game here on October 16th, right, was played at Frankford Stadium in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, against the Frankford Yellow Jackets. So let's check this out here and see what we got here. And I got some okay here. Now we'll go over some of these the starting lineups here. Starting lineups here at my Frankfurt here. Okay. Springsteen was the left end, not Bruce. I'm not sure what his first name is, but Springsteen was the left end. This is for Frankfurt, right? Potts was a left tackle. Hoffman was their left guard. Reed was their center. Comstock was their right guard. Bud was their right tackle. Crowthers was their right guard. Bud was their right tackle. Let's see. I guess their right end, I guess, was Crowthers. Jones was their quarterback. Bruder was their left halfback. Hammer was their Hamer, Hamer, maybe Hamer, was their right halfback, and their fullback was Stockton. Okay. The Giants starting team, their left end was Voss. Steve Owens, there would be their coach from their full-time coach from 1931 to 1953. He was their left tackle. Carney was their left guard. Joe Alexander, Doc Alexander, who was also their coach for the 1926 season. He was their center. Williams was their right guard. John Alexander was their right tackle. Looks like maybe their right end was Bomar. Grigg was the quarterback. Haggerty was the left halfback. Hogan was the right halfback. And Hill was their fullback. Now, substitutions. The Giants, Bender went in for Williams. McBride went in for Hill. Hinkie Haynes went in for Grigg. The Yellow Jackets, they just had two subs. Moran went in for Bruder, and Youngstein went in for Hoffman. So there was only like a handful of substitutes. There was 2 field goals kicked, both in the second quarter. And so that was the whole game came down to basically 2 field goals. All right, let's see. As you can see, there wasn't, substitutions. I mean, it was like, you go in the game, you're in the game. There's only 5 substitutions all game long. All right, so a pair of field goals beats the Giants. Frankfurt gained sweetest triumph of the season, repulsing New York 11 as the Hornets flashed splendid defensive power. Jackets held always. Okay. I love this stuff. This is great. Okay. It was just a day's work for Johnny Budd, the former Lafayette College football All-American. Budd, the big, powerful, husky tackle who has crashed his way through the leading teams on the gridiron in America for the past decade, made a hero of himself when Frankfurt Yellow Jackets triumphed over the New York Giants yesterday afternoon. In a fierce grid struggle to the in Frankfurt Stadium, Frankfurt Avenue, and Devereaux Streets, Frankfurt won the score by 6-0. Those were the figures, 6-0, but the story is that Bud made those 6 points, all of them. And more than that, Bud kept those 6 points margin sufficient to win the old grid fuss. I love these wordings. For Bud, cavorts about in a yellow striped jersey for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, and despite some 200 pounds of beef, Bud can still do a bit of cavorting. From his point of view, of course, he was receiving some good money for working yesterday afternoon, and like a good American, when he was getting paid, he believes in doing a good afternoon's work. He did. 3 times the New York Giants, and they were Giants too, stopped vicious offensive thrusts by various Yellow Jacket backs, among them none other than Tex Hammer, the former University of Pennsylvania star. And just as regularly, the Giants braced and stopped Frankfurt. Also, just as regularly, Mr. Bud stepped back and tried his toe in a placement boot. The first 2 times his boot was good, and Frankfurt tallied 3 points for the field goal. The third time his kick was wide, so he had 3 kicks, so it could have been 9-0, but he missed 1. So they made 2 field goals. They missed the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets missed 1. That was not all. In the last period, New York rallied. It was a real good, substantial rally. Fierce thrusts were made at the Frankford defense. The Yellow Jackets withered. They were forced back. They were in the very shadow of their own goalpost. A touchdown would tie the score, and the point after would win the game for the New Yorkers. Again was Bud. His side of the line was battered viciously, but it held. Many times it held. 3 times in that fourth period, Frankfurt took the ball from New York on downs. What a trip. Oh, hold on there. Oops. What a tribute, I think it said, right? Oh, I did it again. Is this it? Okay. What a tribute to every man on the line and to John Budd, the bulwark of it all. The stirring Frankfurt triumph was over one of the best pro aggregations in the East, with big college stars from all corners of the country on the Giants' payroll. The Giants had a bunch of All-Americans on their team. That is true. Frankfurt moved a peg near the championship of the National Professional Football League by the victory. The game was a league fuss, and the chances of each club to take the lead were at stake. Frankfurt's triumph leaves her still with a clean slate, with no losses. She has not suffered a defeat in the league's schedule. It was the second beating for the Gotham Gritters, meaning they lost the week before to the Bears. Splendid weather conditions drew forth the largest crowd of the season for the stadium. 7,000 fans rooting royally for the Yellow Jackets, and they had plenty of reason to root for a 6-0 win. That last period almost turned the tide to the Giants. It was all by virtue of some wonderful work by Hinkie Haynes, former Penn State star, coupled with a few breaks and a vicious New York counterattack. Half a dozen times the Giants threatened to score a touchdown. A touchdown would tie the score, but every time Frankfurt braced, and she held like a stone wall in the shadow of her own goalpost. I mean, but you figure it's like if the Giants, they went down there, I guess if they lost the ball on downs, I mean, if they just would have kicked field goals. I mean, that seems like that happens so many times. You get the, I don't know what it is. They get down there, and they just don't want to kicking field goals. Haynes ran a couple of times, and Hinkie Haynes from the Giants ran a couple of times, and it looked like a touchdown on a number of occasions. One little jaunt for 50 yards by the said Hinkie Haynes, after received a pass from McBride, almost spilled the beans. Hammer caught him on the Frankfurt 24-yard line. A few moments later, there was a first down on the 13-yard line. And oh, how dark it looked. When New York lost the ball on downs a moment later, it was a different Hammer punt. It was different. Hammer punted out of danger. A punt back and a fumble by Hammer, recovery by Haggerty, and another run by Haynes, and the ball was back on the 9-yard line. So the Giants had the ball back on the 9-yard line for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. 2 more New York line plunges were thrown back, and again, Frankfurt took the ball on downs. I don't know why they're not kicking field. No idea. And after that, still another New York offensive and the same fate, and the greatest game of the year was over at Frankfurt. The earlier part of the game presented some vicious battling at the 2 11s clashed, each after victory. The visitors were after vengeance for the 2 victories scored last year by the Yellow Jackets. The Yellow Jackets beat the Giants 5-3 and 14-0. They're actually the first game ever held by the New York Giants at the Polo Grounds was against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, and the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets would prevail 14-0. So, and then the Giants would lose the 2 games this year against the Frankfurt. So after this season was over, the Giants were 0-4 against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, and in those 4 games, the Giants only scored 3 points. They were outscored, what was that? So that would be what? 14, 19, 31-3 in those 4 games. They were 0-4. and they couldn't even score a touchdown at 4 games against the Frankford Yellow Jackets. Let's see here. But they didn't get they tried to get revenge for last year's 2 losses, but they didn't get it. Doc Bruder was Frankford's ace in the first period, and he made some substantial gains in the course of the early play. He was the big factor in marching the pigskin to the enemy 28-yard line as the first period ended. So Frankfurt had the ball. They got down into Giants territory, down to the 28-yard line as the first period was over. Bud started his work on the second play of the second quarter when he dropped back to the 39-yard line and booted a pretty placement goal. Not a field goal, a pretty placement goal. So on the second play of the second quarter, right, Frankfurt kicked the field goal. They were up 3-0. The 3 points margin looked big to the throng of jacket followers. And I mean, this is just the way it is. Back then, you get like 3 points. It's like, oh my God, we might win. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, nowadays they're scoring like 300 points in the amount of like the final 2 minutes. I mean, teams walk up and down the field. No, it's not like it was back then. Back then, it's a totally different story. Like 3 points is like, oh my God, we might win. Right? The 3 point margin looked big to the throng of Yellow Jackets. Many exchanges of punts followed, with the wind aiding Tech's hammer and the Frankfurt gaining ground. Frankfurt launched into an aerial attack, and passes from Hammer to Chamberlain and Jones carried the ball deep into New York territory. 2 penalties stopped the advance, and again, Bud dropped back. This time he booted his second placement from the 41-yard line. So this guy's good. He kicked the drop, kicked a 39-yarder, and then a 41-yarder. So special teams were huge back then. Hectic forward passes marked the balance of the first half, with Stockton and McBride each leaping into the air for his own team and intercepting a pass in midfield. So fast did the ball change hands that it was no easy matter to keep track of it. The third period saw another Frankfurt offensive at the start, stopped by the Giants. Again, Bud tried a field goal, this time from the 32-yard line, but it was wide. More hectic passing marked the latter part of the quarter, with Hogan and Morin intercepting passes. Frankfurt and New York each fumbled the ball in the fourth period as the crowd was treated to some wonderful football in the vigorous Gotham aggressive and Frankfurt's equally stonewall defense. So the Giants had chances. They especially in the fourth period. I once again, I don't know why. I don't know why. They didn't try field goals. Right. And I got this other one. This is a short one right here. This is very, very short here. This is from the New York Times here. It says a pair of field goals by Johnny Budd, former Lafayette star, enabled the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets to down the New York Giants in the hard-fought game at the Frankfurt Stadium this afternoon, 6-0. Both goals were kicked in the second quarter, being made from the 32 and 42-yard line. Now, interestingly enough, what I read there in that one article, it said the 39. Here it says the 32 and the 42. There he said he missed a 32-yarder. But so by the victory, the Yellow Jackets retained their undefeated record in the National Football League, having won 4 straight starts. So I mean, the Giants had they had a chance. At the end of the game, they had their chances. Once again, I don't know exactly why they get down there and they didn't try to kick field goals. I mean, because sometimes they also kind of think it's that, it's the way some of the coaches are nowadays, because if it's a tough defensive struggle and you get down there, it's like, if we kick a field goal, okay, cool. But, we may not get back down here again. So since we're down here, instead of just trying to kick a field goal, right, let's go for a touchdown. That way, if we get the touchdown, the extra point, we might win the game. Because, I mean, if we try to kick a field goal, we may not ever get back down here again. And, we might wind up losing. So maybe that's the reason why they didn't kick field goals. I don't know. Maybe, whoever they try have kicking field goals for them, maybe were not very successful, so they just didn't feel very good. Because I mean, back then, it's not the way it is nowadays. Nowadays, your kickers, for the most part, you're going to have some, like Graham Cano, who maybe, 88, 89, 90% of his field goals. But even the worst field goal kicker is going to, for the most part, it's going to make 75, 80. That's the way it is nowadays, 70, 75. Obviously back then, that's not the way it was. It was a specialized, trait. I mean, you had it was a skill. Heck of it. I mean, it is kicking it nowadays too, but it was a skill, and not everybody had somebody they could rely on to kick a field goal. And as we saw, that specialized skill, right, could obviously win you, and lose you games. And in this case, in the 1926 season, not being able to drop kick a extra point cost the Chicago Bears a title, because if they made that extra point, they drop kicked that extra point, they would have tied the Frankford Yellow Jackets 7-7. The Bears would not have had a loss on their record, and the Chicago Bears would have had a winning percentage of 1,000, and they would have been the champions for the 1926 season. But because they failed on an extra point attempt, they gave them one loss, and they lost the title because of an extra point. And I said back then, missed field goals, extra points, a lot of missed extra points. That stuff was huge back then, right? And they nowadays it's so important and so crucial. Every point, every field goal, and everything like that is so crucial. It wasn't like back then. It's just some teams just didn't have good field goal kickers, as we saw with the Chicago Bears. It cost them a title. So that pretty much wraps up the fourth game of the 1926 season. So after their 6-0 loss here to the Frankford Yellow Jackets, the Giants fell to 2-2. But they would play, this was October 16th, so they would play my next video I'm going to have coming in the season of this series for the 1926 season would be the very next day on October 17th in the Polo Grounds. All right, so that pretty much wraps up. So that's what happened on this day, October 16th, 1926, in New York Giants history. I'll see you next time.